Hey guys, and welcome back to the Coach Michael Stone YouTube channel. Today we're going to be discussing a beginner's guide to nutrition for hybrid training so you can maximize your body composition and performance. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the following topics. Firstly, we're going to be talking about calorie balance and energy availability. Secondly, we'll be discussing macronutrients. After that, we will briefly be discussing micronutrients, followed by meal timing and frequency, some hydration strategies, as well as supplementation for hybrid training. If you haven't already, check out last week's video on a beginner's guide to hybrid training, where we discuss some important factors that we need to integrate into a hybrid training approach. Nutrition is going to be a fundamental key to increasing your performance, recovery, and even improving your body composition when it comes to this hybrid training approach, where we are combining both strength and endurance training together to optimize our fitness, health, and longevity. When we have adequate nutrients coming in through our diet, we can see better adaptations from all the effort that we're putting into our training. Not only that, but it's going to enhance our endurance and time to fatigue on those mid to longer distance runs. It is going to allow us to repair and build more muscle and increase our overall strength, as well as allowing us to be more resilient when it comes to our training routine so we don't get injured. And last but not least, our nutrition is so important for our general health and longevity. First up, we're going to discuss the importance of calorie balance and energy availability when it comes to training performance and body composition. When it comes to calorie balance or energy balance, we're talking about the relationship between how much energy that we're putting into our body and how much energy our body is expending. Having the right energy balance is going to support our performance, recovery, and body composition goals. Eating too little can put us at risk of reduced performance, higher likelihood of injuries, muscle loss, and higher levels of fatigue. We can also eat too much, which can lead to some unwanted body fat gain. Dependent on the severity of this may impact your performance, and as we know, too much body fat poses a significant threat to our health as well. Now, our actual calorie needs are based off a variety of different factors. To fuel basic bodily functions, your height, age, weight, and gender can all influence your basal metabolic rate, whilst your occupation, general movement throughout the day, and how much you're training can add additional energy expenditure, regulating how much you need to be eating to lose fat, maintain performance, or build muscle. So how do we know if we need to adjust our energy intake? Well, we can use some simple metrics such as monitoring our weight, changes in body composition, performance, and our recoverability from our training sessions. These are the main factors that are going to hint to us that we need to be eating less, the same, if not a little bit more. So that's calorie or energy balance, but what about energy availability? So energy availability is the amount of energy left over to maintain basic bodily functions after we've expended all the energy needed for training. Energy availability is crucial for optimal performance, recovery, and health. Factors that influence how much energy we need to support our training can be the training intensity, duration, and frequency, as well as our total calorie intake and body composition. Here are some signs of low energy availability. You may find yourself fatigued, you're seeing decreases in performance, you may have some hormonal issues. For ladies, this could be complete loss or at least irregularity to their menstrual cycle, loss of libido, and for guys, this could also be loss of libido. You might start to notice you're not pitching a tent as much as you used to in the mornings. So how can we avoid low energy availability? Well, we would need to calculate our actual energy needs based on some of the individual factors discussed before, as well as our total training load. And so how do you actually calculate how much energy you need? Well, one of the first things we need to know is our age, height, weight, and gender, because this is going to influence our basal metabolic rate. From there, we need to estimate our total daily energy expenditure to account for the amount of energy we're expending through our daily activities and training sessions. One key thing to know is that this is always an estimation and it may take a little bit of tinkering to get things right. So just keep in mind, you may need to recalculate your actual energy needs based on changes in your body composition, your training, and your lifestyle. Another decent way to actually measure your energy expenditure would be to purchase a wearable device like an Apple Watch, a Garmin, or something that's going to give you an estimate of how much energy you're actually expending from your training and day-to-day movement. So finally, something that's going to lead into the next point is the fact that we measure energy in calories, but where do calories come from? The main way we intake calories through our diet is through protein, fats, and carbohydrates. As a lot of us know, protein plays a very important role in muscle repair and growth, which helps us to build both strength and endurance, but also reduces the risk of injuries as well. However, what is not well known is that protein actually plays millions of other little roles in our basic metabolism on a day-to-day basis. We use it for more than just building big muscles. Now, fats can play an important role in hormone production, as well as serving as a fuel source for lower intensity activities. However, our primary fuel source when it comes to exercise are carbohydrates. Not only does it fuel higher intensity activities, we use glycogen, which is stored carbohydrate, to fuel our brain, which helps us to contract muscles when we are exercising and moving throughout the day. On top of that, having an adequate amount of carbohydrates in our muscles or in our bloodstream when we are exercising has a protein sparing effect, meaning it helps us to reduce muscle loss whilst training. As with our total energy intake, your macronutrient needs are going to be varied based on your individual needs. A good general guideline for protein is to aim for between 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. You can find high quality protein sources through meat, poultry, fish, and dairy, as well as plant-based sources like soy, legumes, or some well-formulated plant-based protein powders. Now, as a general rule of thumb, based off those protein guidelines I gave you earlier, you need to consume that amount throughout the day. Whether you eat this in 6 meals or 2 or 3, that's up to you. However, you might be better off spreading it out if you struggle to consume larger meals or you notice you've got some issues with digestion when you're training after these large meals. Now, when it comes to fats, 20 to 35% of our daily intake can be adequate, or we could also use 0.8 to 1 grams per kilogram of body weight as a rule of thumb. Some sources include avocados, nuts, fatty fish, and extra virgin olive oil. However, one thing to note is that because fat slows digestion, it may be best having this further away from your training sessions and especially not right before one, as you may start to feel some digestive discomfort or you might feel sluggish or lethargic. Now, on a final note, whilst this isn't typically classed as one of the big 3 macronutrients, another important nutrient that we want to get into our diet is fiber. We can find this through various plant-based sources, whether that be through whole grains, legumes, or fibrous vegetables. However, as with our fats, we don't want to be consuming too much of this before training sessions, as you might start to feel a little bit gassy or bloated. As a general rule of thumb, females should be aiming for 25 grams per day and males 30 grams per day. Now that we've discussed macronutrients, let's dive into micronutrients. So when it comes to micronutrients, we're talking about vitamins and minerals. Typically, one of the easiest ways to get more micronutrients into your diet is to eat a whole foods-based diet. This includes eating a diverse range of different protein sources, various different types of carbohydrates coming from whole grains, fruits, vegetables, some of the healthy fat sources mentioned before. However, it is always worth looking into whether you have any micronutrient deficiencies, as these might not only affect your performance, but your actual health. You can get general checkups done with your local GP, where they may just recommend some dietary changes, or possibly even some supplementation if they think that is necessary. So as we can see, there's a lot going on. We need to make sure we've got the right amount of energy, macronutrients, and micronutrients coming in through our nutrition. But where are we supposed to eat it throughout the day? Let's talk about meal frequency. When it comes to meal frequency throughout the day, as your individual needs and preferences will vary, a general guideline might be 3 to 5 meals and possibly 1 to 2 snacks. We want to make sure that we're evenly distributing our protein intake across these meals and snacks throughout the day. Now, whilst protein intake and timing can be debated, I think that's a good general starting line for most people. When we talk about our carbohydrate intake, it would definitely make sense to increase our carbohydrate intake around training. Whether you're consuming some carbohydrates before, during, or after your training sessions, just make sure that you're adequately fueling your performance so you don't feel low in energy when it comes time to train. As we discussed earlier, for your fat and fiber intake, as these are going to impact your digestion, you would want to keep this a few hours before training sessions, or even try to achieve the majority of your fat and fiber intake after training sessions and throughout the day. In summary, you want to be distributing your protein evenly throughout the day, making sure that you're fueling your workouts with carbohydrates, and avoid eating too much fat or fiber prior to training sessions. So now we've taken a little bit of a dive into our food, let's talk about hydration. It doesn't matter how good your food intake is, if you're dehydrated, you are not going to perform as well. You might feel dizzy or nauseous, and extreme levels of dehydrations can lead to death. So let's make sure we tick the box here. A key role of our hydration status when it comes to training performance is regulating blood volume and also regulating our body temperature. When we are dehydrated, this can impair our strength and endurance performance by impairing muscle function and cardiovascular efficiency. Adequate hydration also aids in nutrient transport and waste removal after training sessions. So when it comes to hydration, we are talking about drinking water, but just how much water should we be drinking? Again, I'll give you a general guideline here where we're going to aim for 30 to 35 milliliters per kilogram of body weight. An easy way to assess if you are dehydrated is just by looking at your urine color. So I'm going to put a urine color comparison chart here so you guys have it for future reference to check if you are hydrated or not. An important factor for people who are noticing that they're losing a lot of fluid during training sessions is to weigh themselves before and after the training session. What you'll want to look at doing here is making up 150% of the weight loss due to sweating in that session. For example, if you lost a kilo during the session, you would be drinking an extra 1.5 liters / 1.5 kilos from water in the hours following. As with anything else nutrition related, your individual needs may vary. So you may want to use the urine comparison chart, the before and after weighing, those general water intake guidelines, as well as paying attention to any symptoms of dehydration before, during, or after training sessions. Another topic that comes up when we talk about hydration is electrolytes. Having adequate electrolyte balance is super important for maintaining fluid balance, muscle contractions, and nerve signaling. Sports drinks like Gatorade or Powerade are some electrolyte options out there to help you maintain a steady electrolyte balance. Now, we really want to be paying attention to this if you are someone that has a lot of sweat loss just from their daily job or training sessions that might be lasting from 60 to 90 minutes or longer, as this is where you're going to be at a higher risk of electrolyte depletion. If you are an individual who typically does sweat a lot more throughout the day and from their training, you're going to need more electrolytes than the person who does not sweat as much. So again, this is individual to your needs. So finally, let's discuss supplementation. Now, the idea of a supplement is purely to supplement what we cannot get through our diet. This is why I'm going to tell you that the majority of supplements out there are not actually needed. One of the underlying reasons why we might look to supplements is to play a small role in improving our performance or body composition. One of the most well-known supplements out there is obviously protein powder, and the main utility for this is going to be for someone who is not getting enough protein through their diet. This is going to be a more convenient way for them to source that. Beyond that, protein powder is actually not absolutely necessary for everyone, especially when they're achieving the actual protein intake through their normal diet. Now, a common supplement that I want to talk about that you guys are probably already taking is caffeine. Caffeine is one of the most well-proven ergogenic supplements out there, meaning it helps to aid in exercise performance. Some of the evidence-based guidelines when it comes to caffeine consumption for improving exercise performance are pretty steep. For the majority of people, I think 1 or 2 shots of coffee, or even a Red Bull or a Monster, is more than adequate for giving them that little bit more pep in their step when it comes to their training. Now, following caffeine, one of the best supplements that you can take when it comes to increasing strength and muscle mass is creatine monohydrate. There's even emerging evidence that creatine may have some neuroprotective effects, and overall, it's one of the most well-studied ergogenic supplements out there. Next up, I want to touch on essential amino acids versus branched chain amino acids. I'll dive into this a little further in a future video. However, my main recommendation here is similar to protein. If you're getting enough protein through your diet, you're probably not going to need essential amino acids. And unless you're looking at something tasty to sip on, I'd probably just disregard branched chain amino acids. Next up, let's talk about beta-alanine. So the main reason for supplementing with beta-alanine is to help us with exercise performance at high intensities between 1 to 4 minutes long. When exercising at high intensities for this amount of time, beta-alanine basically just helps us to buffer lactic acid out of the muscle, which will help us to delay our time to fatigue. So that's all we're going to be touching on in the supplement section today, but I'll talk a little bit more about ergogenic supplements in the future. Now, the primary note I want to leave you with when it comes to supplementation is that it is not absolutely necessary for everyone unless you have been told otherwise by your doctor, dietitian, or someone who is registered to give you that advice. Supplements might fill some of the minor gaps missing in our nutrition, or they may just offer us that little bit of a boost to our exercise performance or ability to build muscle. To finish up, let's just cover some common mistakes that people make when it comes to their nutrition for hybrid training. First of all, it's either under or overeating. Typically, this issue occurs because your energy intake is either not adequate or too high. And this might require you to calculate how much energy you're actually consuming and how much energy you're expending to get a ballpark figure of how much energy you need to make sure you're getting adequate fuel. At points in time, you may intentionally be in a calorie deficit. However, if you are in too aggressive of a deficit, this is going to be counterproductive for your performance and may also cause more muscle loss than necessary. Now, when it comes to increasing performance, generally the guideline is to be at your maintenance energy intake or even slightly higher. If you go higher than that, you're going to be at risk of excessive body fat gain, which is fine if you have no problem with it. However, for those people who want to be more diligent with their body composition and maintain a leaner physique, again, you'll want to be working out how much you're expending and how much you're consuming so you can make sure that you're not putting on too much body fat. Another massive mistake that people make is not getting the adequate amount of macronutrients in. Now, a result of poor education through the media over the years has resulted in this belief that having too much protein or too much carbohydrate is going to be an issue. Maybe you believe that too much protein is going to make you look bulky or too much carbohydrate is going to make you fat. However, as with anything else nutrition related, it all comes down to moderation. You are not just going to wind up bulky overnight. It takes a lot of effort to put on muscle mass, and provided you're not consuming an excessive amount of energy coming from protein, fats, or carbohydrates, you are not going to put on a ridiculous amount of body fat. In fact, you're probably going to feel better, your mood might be better, and your training performance damn sure is going to be a lot better. Another common mistake is poor hydration habits. If you fall in the same boat as me, it can be easy for you just to have a coffee or two in the morning and not drink much water. This is where carrying a bottle around the site, your office, or even if you're at home to remind you to consume more water is going to be a key to helping you to stay more hydrated. You can also use some of those little strategies that we discussed earlier in the hydration section. So today we discussed some of the key factors when it comes to making sure your nutrition is adequate for hybrid training and your lifestyle in general. To recap on the points that we went through today, we discussed the importance of your actual calorie or energy balance and energy availability, consuming the right amount of macronutrients, micronutrients, and how to distribute that across a day. We also discussed the importance of hydration and some strategies. We dipped our toes into the world of supplementation. Finally, highlighted some key mistakes that people make with their nutrition when it comes to hybrid training. So I hope this video helped answer some of your questions today, but feel free to comment or message me on Instagram if you have ideas for future content that you would want me to cover, or if you have any questions in regards to this video now. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the mindset that you need to adopt when it comes to building a leaner, stronger, and more endurable body. Finally, why I think hybrid training is a great tool to help us build self-confidence and mental resilience. Now, finally, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more hybrid training content in future. See you guys next time.